This is my girlfriend's Toyota Celica. Please ignore the fitment for now, that will make sense in a later video, but she got a bit carried away and bought what the Americans would consider a junkyard motor, meaning we've never seen the engine, we've never seen it running, we don't know if it runs, and even the previous owner, the guy that owns it now, has never seen it run. The first question you will always get asked as a Celica owner is it the 140 or is it the 190? Now those numbers depict the power output of the two engines offered in these cars. And as much as Georgia loves the 140, and a lot of people tried to put it down, she was very happy with it, but we had an amazing opportunity from Ronan, a subscriber, to get the more powerful 190 engine. Fortunately, the engine is not too far away at all, so we're going to hit the road, take a look at the engine, and finally figure out what's needed to get a 2ZZ engine into these 1ZZ Celicas, because apparently he's got a full conversion kit. Unfortunately, the 1ZZ to 2ZZ conversion or 140 to 190 conversion is not as simple as just swapping the engines over. The ECU is different, the wiring loom is different, and so on. On first glance, the engine didn't look great and all of the pulleys looked a bit worse for wear and some were seized solid. Corrosion everywhere. My main concern was that the engine at least turned over. Luckily, it did. Phew. Ronan certainly did have a plethora of Celica parts. As part of the deal, he threw in the 2ZZ clocks, a full wiring loom, and also he and Josh offered to get their engine hoist and put the engine in the back of the Mondog for us. Oh yeah, we will be having these cars on the channel soon. Back at the garage, it was time to strap the engine up and attempt to chuck it in the boot. Josh and Ronan were so helpful and basically did all the hard work for me. I've said it before and I'll say it again, Mondeos are fantastic. With the world's first twin-engine Mondeo ready to rock, we headed back to the unit. Ah, poor suspension. Now began the sketchy task of getting the engine out of the Mondeo and onto a pallet. You can almost feel the relief of the rear suspension when it gets out. Although we later found out it did actually snap a coil spring. Still seems a crazy sight to me, but the Mondog did us proud. We could now finally have a proper look at what we had just purchased. This is the first proper chance we've had to look at the engine. It is in worse condition than we thought. It was sort of exposed to the elements, which we weren't aware of, but that's fine. It is what it is. We bought it now, so it is our problem. So, I want to start with the rocker cover. Obviously, being left out in the elements does bring its own problems. Yeah, so the oxidization, that's no problem at all. That just needs to be painted, which is absolutely fine. The thing that scared me is this side of the engine. This is where all your pulleys, this is where all the funky stuff happens. First of all, you'll notice there's no belt on there, which I'm grateful for because obviously you want to make sure nothing is seized. The pulley there was a bit sticky. Obviously we're going to replace, I'm not going to let Georgia fit this without replacing some of the bits. Pulley there, these made me a bit nervous because the alternator one, as you can see, that's completely seized. Moving on to the aircon one, this was a bit stiff, but it has freed up a bit now. The great thing is, what I would imagine is the 1ZZ bits are probably transferable, so luckily she has got technically some spares. Water pump, everything just does seem to be quite free, and as you saw from when we picked it up, the engine does turn over, and obviously seeing it in this state, that is what I was worried about. So we're not there yet, but there's some good signs already. My main thing is now what we're going to do. We are going to do a compression test, which is very interesting when it's not on the car. That'll be an interesting one. I'm glad it's not my engine. But we are going to get a bore scope as well, just to make sure there is no bore scoring, because over time, if rust gets in there, that's when you've got an issue. But everything has been sealed, and if you come and take a look around here, never mind. I hope a rodent or something hasn't got in there. Okay. So they tried to cover the inlet, which is great, but we'll see. And that's just it. That's the beauty of a bore scope. So if you don't know what a bore scope is, it's a little camera that goes down into the cylinders. So we will be taking a look. We'll have a look at the spark plugs and stuff like that. And it is genuine. Ronan, the guy we purchased the engine from, has no idea. He never had this engine running. I don't think it's ran for a good few years, as you can tell. And even just things down to, I've just noticed now the gear selector. I was like, oh no, it's completely rusted, but it does move. Everything just needs a bit of tidying up. But this is the best way for Georgia to learn, I suppose. But yeah, she does have big plans with this. She's really, really excited to get stuck into this. Today is a lesson in what not to do. We managed to get the 2ZZ engine out of the Mondeo onto a pallet, but what we're going to do now is we want this roughly in the middle of the room to work on. You can probably see what's happening here. Like I said, this is what not to do. Yeah, we'll see if this works. Keep the boot open so I can actually see what I'm doing. Safety first, obviously. Yeah! Scream if it goes horribly wrong. It's working! Ish. Sketchy stuff always works sometimes. So we don't recommend that, but if it works, it's not stupid. First thing we're going to check is the spark plugs. That's one of the main things. Actually, first thing we're going to check is to see if it's got oil in it, because we have no idea if this has even got oil. So we've got to remove the spark plugs anyway to do the compression test, so it's always worth checking your plugs. With this, I don't even know if you can do a compression test with no oil. Thinking about it.
Oh.
Yes, it's got oil in there. It looks a bit overfull.
It's not like a Celica engine to have oil in.
No, you would know. Okay, it is over full, but at least it's got oil in there. Fantastic, that's a good sign. What we are going to do, once it's up on it, we are waiting for an engine stand. George has ordered the stand, it's not here yet. We will drop the oil, obviously investigate and make sure there's nothing clunky and chunky in there. So, this has got what they call individual coil packs for the ignition. So it is simply one bolt, pull it out, and then you've got access to the plugs. Now, these are very rusty, so these should only be like 15, 20 Newton meters probably, but... Crikey!
That was so satisfying.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear. That's a good sign. Now you've got to hope that these come out nice. Wow. Okay, that came out lovely. Good sign is there's no oil around there, meaning the gasket is obviously doing its job. And they, although covered in dust, there's no, what you want to do is, there's a little bit there. We're going to be replacing the gaskets anyway. You want to make sure there's no cracks, no damage like that. I haven't heard any horror stories about these, so they'll probably be absolutely fine. And just down there, I don't know if you'll be able to see, is where your spark plug sits. Right, now I'm going to guess, because that looks pretty tight in there. What do you reckon it is, size-wise?
10.
Oh yeah, okay.
I'm going to say, just
10
because
mil.
everything is...
And, here's a bit of nerdy info for you. I don't know if you know this. 10mm socket, 10mm spark plug socket. Do you know why that is?
What the hell?
Because for some bizarre reason, they measure spark plug sockets on the spark plug themselves, not the actual diameter there. Bit of useless information for you.
It's very, very strange.
No idea why. So, another good indicator. Spark plugs, again, are not supposed... Oh, wicked. Not supposed to be in tight at all. There is a torque setting, but I usually go snug and then like a quarter of a turn, which is usually fine. So that's another good sign. Right, so that's a bit light on top there, which usually indicates the plug is getting hot, which usually means running lean. I'm not exactly a professional with these. I might be wrong. I'll do a bit of research with this. I hope it's not the case it's been running lean for too long. The tip looks okay.
That's what she said.
Like I said, I will do a bit more research, but like I said, I'm not a big... We'll check the other ones. See, if they're consistent, then we'll kind of know either it's all buggered or it's all running okay, but we'll have a look. Now we've pulled the plugs. Before we get the bore scope in there, I want to check. I checked that the engine's moving freely, so it's not seized, but it had the plugs and everything in there, so for my own peace of mind, I want to make sure... see, that's exactly what it's supposed to be like. Fantastic. Will it do it again? Well, I'm guessing that's a compression test then. Okay, it's worth it just for that. Right, childish moment over. To check the bores, what we want to do ideally is have the piston at the bottom. This is the longest, thinnest thing I could find. Basically, easier way to find out where your piston is sat is if you get something, pop it gently into the hole. So that's basically sitting on top of the piston, potentially. And if we wind it, there we are. So that's roughly going to be top dead center. So we're going to turn it about there. So we know that's roughly at the bottom now. Science. This is the bore scope I keep going on about, or what's also known as an endoscope. Kenny actually bought this. This was like £20 off eBay. So thank you, cuz. I think there's going to be a bit of an issue because it's so far down. There's a little camera on the end there with some LEDs you feed down, and the idea is to look at the wall. I can't really see the wall, I don't think. Right, we'll have a look. So basically, if you come along with me, guys. So there is the spark plug hole. Whoa. I'm sure this is backwards, so ignore me. Why can't I get it in the hole?
You're not very good at that, are you?
No, hey. Right, so that little splodge you can see there, that was me with a screwdriver just now resting on top. So that is your top of your piston, basically. Looks pretty clean, maybe a bit of carbon buildup, which is fine, but that looks pretty decent. Again, I know very little about this stuff, so I'm hoping someone watching can help. But as I can't turn, do me a favour, rotate the engine a little bit, please. We'll see if the piston goes up and down. Right, so that's not ideal. We can't really see what we wanted to see, but I wanted to show you guys what an endoscope is, or a boroscope, as I always know it. Oh, onto the compression test then. The compression test didn't go to plan either, because as I put power to the starter motor, the motor spun but the solenoid didn't seem to be kicking in and making contact with the flywheel. Let's run through the wiring side of the conversion instead. This looks terrifying. I've made it clear before, wiring is not my strongest point. We have been told everything is plug and play. What you see here is a full wiring loom for a Celica. Apparently for this swap you only need the engine side, but Ronan was kind enough to give us the whole loom just in case, and we've got some spares then anyway. And what he did say, what everyone has told me, is this splits from the fuse box. So the only thing is now, obviously your fuse box is, I'm assuming that's the ECU, so we've got the fuse box. I'm assuming again that is your coil, but that's got to be coil pack. So surely not. Surely that's. Is it just that, do you reckon? Like, if that's the case, if that is the engine harness, then maybe it's not going to be too bad at all. All of this scary stuff we might not need. But obviously the important thing is, like I said, fuse box and what I'm assuming is the ECU. Anyway, we've got everything we need by the look of it. And another cool thing, we have got the 190 clocks. These are different. The 190 revs a lot higher, obviously with a 9k limit just there, and the speedo actually goes up to 160. Interesting thing is, like I said, this is a complete unknown engine, so we are going to find out the mileage with you guys the moment we turn the key and it pops up on here. So for all we know, this could be on like 300,000 miles. Right, so that is our junkyard motor. Sorry for butchering the American thing. I don't know why I've called it a junkyard motor. That's the only way I know to say completely unknown engine. This is why this is exciting for me, because it's not my car and we get to bring you guys along when we turn the key for the first time. As you can see, the engine rotates. It's going to be a lot more work than we thought because we didn't realise how rusted the pulleys were. I cannot get the starter to engage. I don't know if that's because the solenoid is run on a different sort of system to the actual the motor. I don't know enough about it. We've tried to put motor power to it and it didn't work. But we are all really, really excited. We've never done anything like this before. We'll keep you up to date with the dates and with everything that's going on, but we do finally want to answer the question, like we said, what is definitely needed to put a 2ZZ into a 1ZZ. But I'm petrified, but hey-ho. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We will see you on the next one. And hopefully there's no boom.